Hello, my name is John McAvoy and I work for the Federal Records Center program of the National Archives and Records Administration. This module will provide you with an understanding of the functions of the ARCIS customer portal and its basic architecture via the 4 interdependent components. Let's take a look. First, many people want to know what ARCIS means, and ARCIS stands for Archives and Records Center Information System. When we were starting to build ARCIS, we needed a name for it, and so we had a naming contest, and a young lady from the President Clinton Presidential Library in Arkansas named it. Her name was Kim Coriat, and she came up with ARCIS, which incidentally also is a Greek word that stands for strong box. Next up, what is ARCIS? Well, it's a web-based application for the management of records transfers between the owning agency and the NARA record centers. This replaces many old stovepipe systems, and it certainly modernizes the entire records management process. We're now including things like barcoding, status changes, information that can be displayed back to the customer via the portal. So it's truly a modernization of the entire process as different from the old paper-based system. Now there are two sides of ARCIS. Certainly the NARA side or the FRC side has an employee portal. It's much more robust than the customer portal in that it includes records transfers, reference requests, refiles, interfiles, dispositions, accessions, space management, billing, and a whole host of other things. All of which are handled through the employee portal of ARCIS. And then of course we have the customer portal, and this is where it's used by our customers to submit transactions to the FRCs. Now before the new version of the ARCIS customer portal came about, only the reference module reference request module rather, was available in the original version. So there are 4 interdependent ARCIS components. These are the foundations upon which ARCIS is built. The first one is user administration, and this is the area that allows agencies to set up ARCIS users and assign them access controls and capabilities. We literally hand the keys to ARCIS over to the agency, and we assign a super administrator or 2 perhaps, and those administrators can create other administrators. And then those administrators collectively can create, modify, and inactivate users of the system. So this responsibility becomes incumbent upon you, the agency, to take over, and no longer will our ARCIS help desk in St. Louis accept new user applications for the ARCIS customer portal. Instead, we will simply forward them to your super administrators for your agency. Next up is access controls, and this is what restricts the records that each user can access or retrieve from the federal record centers. It also limits the type of records transfers that a user can create within the system. There are 4 major access controls and 2 optional ones. The first access control, of course, is record group. Many of our agencies that store records with the Federal Record Center have only 1 record group, but there are some agencies out there that have upwards of, I've seen 24 individual record groups. So you can kind of see from this first access control that if you have an agency that has 10,000 transfers and say 2,000 of those transfers are only part of 1 record group, the list of records transfers that this person can access via the records transfers is now restricted down to those 2,000. The next access control is record center. We have 17 record centers across the United States. Our newest one in Kansas City is an IRS specific record center. So that leaves the other 16 record centers where general records are stored. So now if you limit somebody to only 1 or perhaps 2 record centers that they can access and also send new records transfers to, now you can see where you've limited their access control even further. The third access control is charge account, or sometimes known as charge code. This is where some agencies have elected to go with stratified invoices, meaning you get a departmentally separated invoice, and each records transfer is assigned one of these specific charge codes. And therefore, now you can create yet another subset of your records transfer holdings in the record centers by virtue of charge account. Now, many agencies only have one charge account. It's called the master charge account or charge code 00. So that may be the case, and it may not work very thoroughly for you as an access control itself. And the last of the four bolted-in access controls is security classification and level. First question is, are the records classified or unclassified? And then you have various and sundry security levels. For example, you have unclassified standard storage, unclassified restricted storage. You can have classified secret storage, for example. So this now restricts users to security classification and security level. Now, recently we just made the change that we will allow for the access of classified records via the customer portal. In addition to that, you can also create a classified records transfer in the portal as well. We will give super administrators access to those security classifications based on current inventory holdings. And then it's up to the super administrators to dole out those security classifications to user profiles, but only to those users that have the proper security clearances. Then we have two optional access controls. One is called agency-defined fields. Agency-defined fields is another way of separating your records transfer inventory within the record centers. You can come up with any naming convention that you wish. However, each agency then has a homework assignment where they have to assign one agency-defined field to each individual records transfer in their holdings, and that way it'll work great for an access control. This is particularly useful for those agencies who have no need for a departmentally or stratified invoice from the Record Center program, but instead want some semblance of access controls, and agency-defined fields is a great way to provide that for your holdings. And then lastly, we have branch as an access control. Typically, most customers don't need branch to be used as an access control, but instead branch is used as a indexing tool for user administration, so that when a user administrator logs in and clicks on the user administration tab, then that person will only see those users. The next interdependent component is the darling that everybody's been waiting for, and that is records transfers. And that is where you can now submit SF-135s online, and you can track the status of records transfers. No longer will you have to haul out your antique 1940s standard form 135 and pop it into your vintage 1972 IBM Selectric typewriter, probably with carbon paper, and type up an SF-135 and then pop it in the mail and cross your fingers that the Record Center actually gets it. No. Now you'll be able to track your newly created SF-135 online and follow it all the way through to disposition. And then lastly, we have reference requests. This is where you can submit an OF11 online and track the status of your reference request. Reference request then is needed for retrieval of items back from the Record Center. And that includes our basic understanding of ARCIS as a part of Module 1. As always, help is available for the ARCIS customer portal. You can access a wealth of information at the ARCIS website, as well as access to all of the training manuals for all of the available components of ARCIS. Link to that via www.archives.gov/frc/ARCIS. There too you will find a link for the ARCIS Help Desk entitled Get Help, and that will provide you with information about the hours of operation for the ARCIS Help Desk in St. Louis, as well as their phone number and an email address. And lastly, you can contact your ARCIS administrator.